The sound is becoming increasingly familiar in certain urban landscapes across Britain. It is the adhan, the Islamic call to prayer. For some, it is an exotic, perhaps even unsettling addition to the daily soundscape of cities like London, Birmingham or Bradford. For a growing number of Britons, however, it is a comforting, integral part of their spiritual rhythm, a 5 times daily reminder of faith and community. This auditory presence, once confined to the private sphere or the immediate vicinity of a few scattered mosques, now sometimes echoes more publicly, a symbol of Islam's quiet but steady rise in the fabric of modern British life. This is not a sudden shift, but a gradual unfolding. The call to prayer signifies more than just a religious duty being observed. It represents a visible, or rather audible, manifestation of a community that has been growing and evolving for decades. From the early post-war arrivals seeking economic opportunities to their British-born grandchildren navigating complex identities, Islam has woven itself into the national tapestry. The sound, therefore, speaks of presence, of continuity, and of a faith that is actively practiced and lived. It challenges older notions of a singular British identity, prompting a wider conversation about what it means to be British in the 21st century. A conversation that is ongoing and often fraught with complexities, but undeniably vital. Consider the sheer demographic shift. The Muslim population in Britain has grown significantly over the past few decades through immigration and natural growth. This is not merely a statistic, it translates into vibrant communities, new businesses, cultural expressions, and an increasing demand for faith-specific services and spaces. The call to prayer, where it is heard, is a direct consequence of these communities establishing themselves, building mosques, and seeking to practice their faith openly. It is a testament to the religious freedoms that Britain upholds, even as those freedoms are sometimes tested by social and political tensions. The sound is a declaration of belonging. This increasing audibility and visibility naturally provoke reactions ranging from acceptance and curiosity to anxiety, and in some quarters outright hostility. Islam's presence is reshaping public spaces and the public discourse. The discussions around the call to prayer, mosque construction or religious attire are all part of a larger societal adjustment to a more visibly diverse religious landscape. Understanding the rise of Islam in Britain requires looking beyond headlines and delving into the lived experiences of British Muslims, their aspirations, their challenges, and their contributions to the nation they call home, a nation that is itself being quietly reshaped by their presence. The story of Islam in modern Britain often begins in the mid-20th century. Post-war Britain, seeking to rebuild and fill labour shortages, opened its doors to migrants from its former colonies. Many of the first wave of Muslim immigrants arriving from South Asia, the Caribbean and parts of Africa were driven by economic necessity. They were generally a pious generation, carrying their faith with them as a crucial part of their identity and a source of solace in a new, often bewildering land. Their religious practice, however, was frequently more private, more culturally infused, and perhaps less outwardly assertive than what might be observed in some communities today. The cultural conservatism of these early arrivals coexisted with adaptations to their new environment. For instance, while devout in their core beliefs, some men from these communities might have consumed alcohol, a practice generally forbidden in Islam. The wearing of the hijab among women was far less common than it is now. Faith was deeply held, but often expressed in ways that were less distinct from the surrounding secular or Christian culture. Their primary focus was often on hard work, providing for their families, and maintaining strong community bonds, typically centered around the first fledgling mosques, often converted houses or small, unassuming buildings. These early communities laid the foundations for what was to come. They established the first halal butchers, the grocery stores stocking familiar foods, and the nascent community organizations that provided support and a sense of belonging. Their faith was a bedrock, a constant in a world of change, but it was expressed within a context of striving for integration and economic stability. The religious leadership that emerged was often traditional, sometimes directly transplanted from their countries of origin, and focused on preserving religious customs and providing pastoral care to a community finding its feet in an alien, sometimes unwelcoming environment. The challenges they faced were numerous, including economic hardship, discrimination, and the struggle to maintain their cultural and religious heritage while encouraging their children to succeed in British society. The Islam of this generation was perhaps less about theological debate or political assertion and more about the quiet practice of rituals, the comfort of shared values, and the preservation of identity in the face of overwhelming change. Their legacy is the very presence of a significant Muslim community in Britain today, a community that would continue to evolve in surprising ways with subsequent generations. The children of the first wave of Muslim immigrants, the second generation, often charted a different course. Growing up in Britain, educated in British schools, they were more attuned to the social and political currents of their time. This generation frequently found itself challenging not only the racism prevalent in wider society, but also at times the traditional and sometimes patriarchal religious leadership within their own communities. For many, their primary identity was British, and they sought to reconcile their heritage with a more secular, modern outlook. Some moved away from organized religion, while others sought a more contemporary interpretation of their faith. However, the landscape of Muslim identity in Britain has continued to shift, and recent studies highlight a fascinating and to some concerning generational trend. A March 2025 study by the Institute for the Impact of Faith in Life, IFL, revealed a significant divergence. Younger British Muslims are now more likely to identify with their faith first, placing Muslim before British. This contrasts with older generations who were more inclined to identify as British first. An April 2025 poll further corroborated this, indicating that a majority of British Muslims now identify more strongly with their faith than with their nationality, a notable change from previous decades. This more inward-looking and, in some segments, more visibly conservative character observed in parts of the Muslim community today is not solely attributable to religious conviction. Broader social and political developments have played a crucial role. The second generation, while sometimes more secular, faced significant societal barriers. The current generation has grown up in a post-9/11 world, a world where their faith is often scrutinized, politicized, and, at times, vilified. This constant external pressure, combined with the rise of identity politics globally, appears to be fostering a stronger, more asserted, faith-based identity as a source of belonging and resilience. This shift is not monolithic. The British Muslim community is incredibly diverse, encompassing a wide spectrum of beliefs and practices, yet the trend towards a more pronounced religious identity among the young is undeniable. It speaks to a complex interplay of factors: a search for authenticity, a reaction to perceived Islamophobia, a connection to a global ummah, community of believers facilitated by technology, and perhaps a disillusionment with secular society's promises. Understanding this generational tide is key to understanding the future trajectory of Islam in Britain and its place within the national identity. The mosque in Britain has evolved far beyond its original function as simply a place for prayer. Today, these institutions, alongside dedicated community centres, are vibrant hubs of activity, crucial to the social, educational and spiritual well-being of Muslim communities across the country. They serve as sanctuaries not just for worship, but for learning, for social gathering, for charitable work, and for fostering a sense of collective identity and purpose. The growth in the number and scale of these centres is a direct reflection of the community's own growth and its increasing confidence in expressing its faith and culture. A clear example of this dynamism can be seen in the activities of communities like the Ahmadiyya Muslims. The UK's Waqf-e-Now Ijtima, in April 2025, a national gathering for women and girls held at the impressive Baitul Futu Mosque complex in London, illustrates this perfectly. This event saw an attendance of 1,379 individuals, a notable increase from the previous year. Such numbers indicate a high level of engagement and the importance of these communal gatherings for reinforcing faith, discussing contemporary issues, and strengthening bonds within the community. These are not fringe activities, they are central to the lived experience of many British Muslims. During the aforementioned Ijtima, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, the Khalifatul Masih Fave, addressed the attendees, albeit via livestream. His message underscored the crucial role of women in nurturing children with Islamic values and the importance of upholding and propagating Islamic teachings. He also stressed the need for individuals to maintain their religious duties, even while pursuing secular education and careers. This highlights how these centers are actively engaged in guiding their communities, particularly the younger generations, in navigating the complexities of life in modern Britain while remaining steadfast in their faith. These centers are more than bricks and mortar. They are the lifeblood of their communities. They often house supplementary schools providing religious education, language classes, and even homework clubs. They organize youth activities, marriage services, funeral rites, and interfaith dialogue initiatives. They provide a space where cultural traditions can be maintained and passed on, and where new British Muslim identities can be forged. The flourishing of these mosques and community centres is a testament to the resilience and organisational capacity of British Muslims, creating essential infrastructure for faith and community life. Section 5. New minarets on the skyline. Defining faith in urban landscapes. As Islam establishes deeper roots in Britain, its architectural presence is also becoming more pronounced. New purpose-built mosques, some of considerable size and architectural ambition, are rising in British towns and cities. These structures, with their distinctive minarets and domes, are changing the urban skyline, becoming modern landmarks in their own right. They represent a significant shift from the early days of converted houses or discrete prayer rooms, signalling a community that is not only present, but intends to be a lasting and visible part of the British landscape. These buildings are the new cathedrals for their congregations, centres of immense spiritual and communal importance. These modern mosques are often designed to be multifunctional, reflecting the diverse needs of their congregations. Beyond the main prayer hall, they frequently incorporate facilities such as libraries, classrooms for religious and secular education, community halls for events, and even sporting amenities. They are conceived as welcoming spaces for all members of the community, men, women, and children, fostering an environment of learning, social interaction, and spiritual growth. The investment in such ambitious projects underscores the community's commitment to creating enduring institutions that will serve future generations of British Muslims. The development of these prominent faith spaces inevitably sparks public discussion. For many, they are a symbol of Britain's multicultural success and its commitment to religious freedom. They are seen as enriching the architectural diversity of the nation and providing vital community infrastructure. For others, however, their increasing visibility can be a source of unease, perceived as a challenge to a more traditional, monolithic sense of British identity. Planning permissions for new mosques can sometimes become contentious, highlighting underlying social tensions and debates about the place of Islam in British society. Nevertheless, these new minarets on the skyline are an undeniable testament to the growing confidence and integration of Muslim communities. They are not hidden away, but stand openly, inviting dialogue and interaction. They function as powerful statements of belonging and permanence. Much like the historic cathedrals that dot the British landscape and speak of centuries of Christian heritage, these new mosques are becoming significant spiritual and cultural anchors for a substantial segment of the British population, visibly articulating the presence and vitality of Islam in 21st century Britain. Section 6. The Crucible of Identity, Politics, Policy and Public Perception. The strengthening of faith-based identity among many British Muslims is not occurring in a vacuum. It is profoundly shaped by the wider political and social context. The general rise of identity politics across Western societies has created an environment where group affiliation, be it ethnic, religious or national, has become increasingly salient. Within this framework, religious identity can offer a powerful sense of belonging and a clear set of values, particularly for minority communities navigating complex societal pressures. This trend is further amplified by specific public policies and the way state institutions interact with these communities. One significant factor has been the approach of framing the nation as a community of communities. While intended to foster inclusivity and manage diversity, this policy can inadvertently reinforce group boundaries. State institutions, often seeking to engage with minority populations, have frequently done so through conservative religious leaders. This can unintentionally grant more prominence and authority to traditional interpretations of faith, potentially sidelining more secular or progressive voices within Muslim communities, and further encouraging an identification primarily through a religious lens rather than a broader civic one. Furthermore, perception plays a crucial role. There is a reported feeling among many British Muslims that non-Muslims predominantly see their faith rather than their Britishness. This external labelling, often amplified by media narratives and political discourse that focuses on Islam primarily in the context of extremism or cultural difference, can lead to an internalization of that faith-first identity. If society consistently frames you by your religion, it becomes increasingly central to how you see yourself. This is compounded by sentiments vocal in some segments of society that Muslims do not inherently belong in the West, often linked to a desire for an exclusively white or culturally homogeneous Britain. This dynamic can unfortunately reinforce a sense of otherness and may contribute to what some describe as Muslim sectarianism, as communities turn inwards for support and validation when faced with suspicion or hostility from parts of the broader society. A strong, shared religious identity can become a vital source of solidarity and resilience. The interplay between how Muslims perceive themselves, how they are perceived by others, and how public policy engages with them creates a complex crucible in which contemporary British Muslim identities are being forged, often with a heightened emphasis on faith. Section 7. Global currents, local ripples, international influences on British Islam. The religious landscape for British Muslims is not solely shaped by domestic factors, it is also significantly influenced by global currents and international developments. The interconnectedness of the modern world means that events and ideological trends in the wider Muslim Ummah or global community can resonate deeply within communities in Britain. For decades, geopolitical rivalries, such as that between Saudi Arabia and Iran, have had an impact, sometimes manifesting in the funding of different religious institutions or the promotion of particular interpretations of Islam in the West, including the UK. This can contribute to the diversity and sometimes the tensions within British Islam. The funding of more hardline Islamist organizations in Western countries by external actors has been a subject of concern and debate. Such influences can promote interpretations of Islam that are more conservative or politically assertive than those traditionally practiced by earlier generations of immigrants. This can contribute to the generational shifts in religious expression and identity, with some younger Muslims being drawn to these more globally oriented and sometimes more rigid understandings of their faith. The digital age further amplifies these global connections, allowing for the easy dissemination of religious teachings and ideologies from across the world directly into British homes. Interestingly, there are also calls from within the global Muslim leadership for a more nuanced approach. For instance, in April 2025, the head of the Saudi-backed Muslim World League advised British Muslims to concentrate more on domestic British issues rather than focusing predominantly on international concerns, such as the situation in Gaza. This advice suggests an awareness among some international religious figures of the challenges faced by Muslim minorities in the West and the importance of civic integration and engagement with national concerns. It points to a desire to see Western Muslim communities thrive as constructive citizens within their respective countries. These global dynamics create a complex tapestry of influences. While international events can foster a sense of global Muslim solidarity, particularly in response to crises or perceived injustices, they can also import ideological conflicts or encourage a detachment from local societal concerns. The challenge for British Muslims and for British society as a whole is to navigate these external influences in a way that supports a vibrant, integrated yet authentic expression of Islam that is both true to its global heritage and firmly rooted in the British context. Section 8. Challenges and controversies navigating a complex terrain. The increasing visibility and evolving identity of Islam in Britain are not without significant challenges and controversies. These often highlight the friction points between different cultural values, the impact of global events on local communities, and the ongoing struggle against prejudice. One stark example is the case of anti-Islam activist Stephen Yaxley Lennon, known as Tommy Robinson. His activities, including the public playing of a libelous documentary in Trafalgar Square in July 2024, and his subsequent jailing for contempt of court, underscore the presence of potent anti-Muslim sentiment and its capacity to inflame tensions, as seen in the riots across Britain in late July and August 2024. His advanced release in May 2025, after complying with a court order, keeps such figures in the public eye. Language itself can become a battleground reflecting deeper societal divisions. A controversy erupted in April 2025 when the BBC faced public backlash for using the term reverts to describe converts to Islam in a headline, which it subsequently altered. The term revert is preferred by some Muslims who believe Islam to be the natural human state, but its use by a national broadcaster sparked debate about impartiality and the accommodation of specific religious terminologies in mainstream discourse. This incident illustrates the sensitivities surrounding how Islam and Muslims are represented and discussed publicly. Accusations of prejudice also surface in the political arena. Labour MP Tahir Ali, for example, reported facing Islamophobic attacks due to his advocacy for a new airport in Mirpur, Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. Such claims, regardless of the specifics of the policy debate, highlight the reality that individuals in public life who are Muslim can find their contributions or political stances unfairly scrutinized or attacked through the lens of their religious identity. This creates an additional burden and can discourage political participation or lead to a more defensive posture. Moreover, there is an ongoing discussion, as indicated by a Guardian commentary piece anticipated for April 2025, about the potentially corrosive nature of identity politics, even when examining its role within Muslim communities or when critics discuss Islam. This suggests a complex debate about how focusing heavily on group identity, whether by the group itself or by external commentators, might sometimes hinder broader social cohesion or nuanced understanding. Navigating this terrain requires open dialogue, a commitment to tackling prejudice, and a willingness to engage with uncomfortable truths from all sides. The path is rarely smooth. Section 9. An unfolding tapestry. Islam's enduring mark on Britain. Islam in Britain is not a static phenomenon. It is a dynamic, evolving, and increasingly undeniable aspect of the nation's contemporary identity. From the quiet piety of the first post-war arrivals to the asserted faith of many younger British Muslims today, the journey has been one of profound transformation, both for the community itself and for the country as a whole. The call to prayer echoing in city neighbourhoods, the new minarets gracing urban skylines, and the vibrant community centres bustling with activity are all testament to a faith that is deeply rooted and actively shaping the social and cultural landscape of 21st century Britain. The generational shifts in identity, with many younger Muslims prioritising their faith, are a complex response to a multitude of factors, from global political currents and the rise of identity politics to the lived experience of being Muslim in a society still grappling with diversity. These shifts are not necessarily a rejection of Britishness, but rather an attempt to forge a meaningful identity that synthesizes their heritage, faith, and national belonging in a way that feels authentic to them. This ongoing negotiation of identity is a defining characteristic of modern British Islam, producing a diverse spectrum of beliefs and practices. The challenges are undeniable, ranging from social prejudice and Islamophobia, as seen in the controversies surrounding figures like Tommy Robinson or the debates over terminology, to internal discussions about leadership and direction. However, the resilience and adaptability of British Muslim communities are equally apparent. They are building institutions, engaging in civic life, contributing to the economy and culture, and continually redefining what it means to be a Muslim in Britain. The advice from global religious bodies to focus on domestic issues alongside the community's own grassroots initiatives points towards an ongoing effort to integrate and contribute meaningfully. Ultimately, Islam's presence in Britain is an integral thread in the nation's rich and complex tapestry. It is a story of migration, settlement, adaptation and assertion. It is a story that continues to unfold, bringing with it new dialogues, new challenges, and new opportunities for mutual understanding and growth. The quiet rise has become a clear and significant presence, one that continues to shape and be shaped by the broader currents of British life. The conversation about Islam in Britain is, in essence, a conversation about Britain itself, its past, its present, and its future.